BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And hello everybody, today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone had a good weekend. In this episode, I will be looking at a new Zodiac Killer Suspect, two of them actually, as well as continuing the discussions on some of the possible Zodiac Killer ciphers out there, and discussing some new Zodiac publications that will be on the horizon. My name is Box Ned, and I am your host. The Zodiac Killer was a serial killer that operated in California in 1968 and 69. Whatever happened before or after that is still part of the mystery. And I would like to give a shout out to Jason W., who sent this into the Facebook page. My name on Facebook is Ned DeHaan, but you can also contact the show at Black Box Online Radio. There's a Facebook page that I'm hoping to use more actively this year. And Jason was talking about one of the prime suspects in the Zodiac Killer mystery, Arthur Lee Allen. And I'm going to read his comment right here. Do I have a suspect? Well, like many, I have consumed all of the recent podcasts, read all of the information, and watched all of the documentaries and movies. The Zodiac Killer from 1971? That's 87 minutes I will never get back. LOL. Even after all of that. Who the hell knows? Arthur Lee Allen, certainly well worth looking into at the time. In my mind, Arthur Lee Allen was not the Zodiac because of one simple reason. Brian Hartnell is obviously an intelligent individual. Brian Hartnell, of course, the surviving victim from the Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969. And if the man he encountered was Allen, he would know. I imagine he roughly resembled Dennis Rader, Joseph D'Angelo, Gary Ridgway. A white man, glasses, stocky, barrel-chested. Yeah, why not? I believe he had trouble getting dates. This is talking about the Zodiac Killer, mind you. I believe he had trouble getting dates and was likely rejected a lot as a teenager. Average-looking, peculiar, and probably cringed out the girls when he spoke to them. A violent and comic book and movie nerd who became angry with everything and anyone, who then decided to act out his fantasy of murdering young couples. He enjoyed the fame and attention. The murder of Paul Stine, the Zodiac Killer's final victim, was a random attack for whatever reason, and almost got him caught, and he freaked out like a coward bitch and decided to just stop. Hopefully for the families he will be identified sometime soon, but I have my doubts. And I really do appreciate that from Jason W. I mean, I think absolutely everything that he said about the profiling aspects of the Zodiac Killer case are pretty much spot on. The Zodiac Killer committed the first crime on December 20th of 1968 with the Lake Herman Road murders that saw the deaths of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, a couple that was parked in a car at Lake Herman Road. The second crime was on July 4th of 1969 with the murder of Darlene Ferrin, who was in a parked car again with Mike Mageau in the passenger seat. And then we have the previously mentioned Lake Berryessa stabbing on September 27th of 1969, where Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard are attacked on a picnic blanket at Lake Berryessa, and that is also a crime involving a couple. So the first three crimes in Zodiac activity have couples in secluded areas, so all of these observations about how this is some type of individual who is mad at heterosexual couples for some reasons. And a lot of people out there have a very big divide. Some people think that that's because he was a heterosexual male himself who couldn't get a date, and other people think that that's because he was a gay man who was very mad because he wasn't able to live a conventional lifestyle. So it really is a different layer within the mystery. But you heard Jason W.'s comment right there that the murder of Paul Stine on October 11th of 1969 could have just been a random target, and that's why it's so confusing, because it was just something that was done to confuse people on purpose. And I know that that's a boring answer, and even I think that's a boring answer, but if you were to ask me right now, why do I think the Zodiac Killer did what he did? I'm really going with the random dates, random times, intentionally trying to confuse people because they wouldn't be able to predict what he is going to do next, and that's it. That might be the long and short of it. Like, some people really try to hyper-analyze the dates and the numbers, and I've done that in the past. I've done that, and I've explored those possibilities, but as of now, I'm more or less going with some type of randomness or intentionally distorting the crime scenes and the reasons why he's committing the crimes. He's just doing this in an intentionally distorting way. But if you want to challenge me on that, you can put your ideas in the comment section down below. I would love to know what you think about how and why the Zodiac Killer is committing his crimes. And also, there is a depiction of this possibility that is featured in the Soleil Productions graphic novel. They were pretty much on the same page with Jason W.'s comments about the lonely male who can't have heterosexual relationships. So he starts getting involved with these fantasies of hurting couples in situations, and he is just building these kill kits, and all of that is illustrated in the Soleil Productions graphic novel, which I talked about a lot last year on the channel, recommending it one more time. Now, I'm an admin in a Zodiac Killer Facebook group called the Zodiac Killer Library. And recently, someone went on a bit of a tirade in that group, and they shared numerous posts about a new Zodiac Killer suspect named Eric Musen. This is a person whom I've never had any experience with in the past. I've never heard of his name. I've never heard of him. I knew nothing about this person, but someone was just posting page after page of information about Eric Musen, stating that they have solved the Zodiac Killer mystery and they've identified the culprit, and his name was Eric Musen. And we've found lots of different Zodiac Killer suspects with lots of different occupations and their backgrounds. We're talking about everything from journalists to public policy lecturers to librarians to mathematicians to other serial killers as well. All types of people have been accused of being the Zodiac Killer. But I was really quite surprised that this individual, whom I will just leave nameless, decided to accuse a beekeeper of being the Zodiac Killer. And that's not really fair to Eric Musen. I should call him Dr. Eric Musen because he was actually a very serious scientist. He was an entomologist who specialized in the study of honeybees. And as we're going to see very clearly early on, he was somebody who was even known as the honeybee guru in his professional world, in the academic circles. Eric Musen was born on May 12th of 1944, so doing some fast math, he would have been about 24, 25 years old at the time of the Zodiac Killer crime sprees that took place in 1968 and 69. And I'm just going to read a couple different things about Dr. Eric Musen. In fact, why don't I just genuinely get to the important parts, because I mean, this guy had a very big resume. As I said, he's working with the study of honeybees. It seems like he primarily worked with UC Davis and the University of California Agricultural and Natural Resources School, UCANR, and he, again, specialized in entomology. But, this person in the Zodiac Killer Library was stating all of these things about how they thought they were going to find bodies near his beehives. They thought that they were going to find all of these clues that were going to trace this beekeeping scientist back to the Zodiac Killer mystery. Let's just read the obituary. Celebrated honeybee authority Dr. Eric Carnes Musen, an internationally known 38-year, California Cooperative Extension apiculturist and invaluable member of the UC Davis Department of Entomology faculty, died from liver cancer and the year was 2022. He was 78 years old. Okay, Dr. Musen was known to everybody as Eric, and he joined the UC Davis Entomology Department in 1976. Pay attention to that, 1976. Although he retired in 2014, he continued many of his activities until a few weeks prior to his death. For nearly 4 decades, he drew praise as the honeybee guru, and you'll find that in other places, even in beekeeping magazines. He was referred to as the honeybee guru, and that is not just something that was made up for his memorial service. That really was something that people referred to him as. Norman Gray, a noted UC Davis emeritus professor of entomology who served as a faculty member from 1962 to 1994, described Eric as by far the best extension apiculturist in the country. Okay, and this is almost one of those moments when you're thinking, now, is this going to be somewhat controversial, even accusing this person of being the Zodiac Killer. And I mean, he's not my suspect, but even talking about him on Zodiac Monday, where is the hard pieces of evidence? Where is everything that is going to just try and show that he actually may have had some type of connection to the Zodiac Killer mystery? Where is all of that stuff? Well, I'm just going to throw some water on this particular theory, because his own obituary states that from 1969 to 1975, really it's 1968 to 1975, he was not living in California. I told you to pay attention to that date about him joining UC Davis in 1976. From 1968 to 1975, he was a student, a grad student at the University of Minnesota, or he was a grad student living in Minnesota. So he's not even living in the Bay Area during the times of Zodiac activity. And as we've seen very clearly from our recent Zodiac Killer discussion, it's important to remember that the Zodiac Killer was not only a serial killer, he also wrote letters and mailed those famous ciphers and the greeting cards and the diagrams, and they've tracked the locations of where those cards, ciphers, letters, and diagrams were mailed from, and they were mailed from the Bay Area, from Northern California, and sometimes perhaps in other places in California. So that would be extremely difficult. And unless this nameless person whom I've been talking about has some type of explanation, which was not provided in the group, about why you think that this grad student in Minnesota was able to mail letters from California, or like, do you have some reason to place him in the Bay Area on these exact dates, not only for the murders, but the mailings of the letters? I mean, I just don't really think that this is going anywhere. And in case you were wondering, prior to 1969, he was a student in Massachusetts, actually. Eric Musen was born in Schenectady, New York. It's always a hard name for me to say, Schenectady. Yeah, someone wrote out the phonetics for me once, but that's where he was born in 1944. And he went to college in Massachusetts and then grad school in Minnesota. So I'm not seeing anything Bay Area related to Dr. Eric Musen, and it's almost like the concept of, okay, you just pulled up a white guy in glasses that had some California connection, but we're talking about a California connection after 1975. The final confirmed Zodiac Killer letter was in 1974. What on earth are you talking about? Are you just accusing any sort of random white guy in a pair of glasses of being the Zodiac Killer? And I said all of this stuff in the group, the Zodiac Killer Library, and somebody responded by saying, hey Ned, the person who threw that profile together did it in like one day. I mean, this person's most likely trolling. And based on the way that the profile was created, based on the way the person was sharing the information, I don't think that this person was actually trolling. It seems like it is done in the exact same way about people, done in the same way as people who are very serious about claiming that they've solved the Zodiac Killer mystery, claiming that they've identified the killer. Their new person of interest or their new suspect has to be the person because of all the reasons that they have, because of their giant, almost incoherent diatribes that are going on. Look at all this evidence that I have, which is usually just a bunch of giant mangled language and sentences that are just stitched together. And also, somebody was very keen to note about how the person who was sharing the stuff about Dr. Eric Musen being the Zodiac Killer was saying a bunch of things to the effect of, you say that you are posting all of these things online about how Eric Musen was the Zodiac because you're doing it for the victims, you're doing it for their families, and you want to bring closure to the case and the situation. Yet it seems like you have some type of obsession with your person of interest. You have some type of obsession with your suspect. Okay, let's all remember that. Let's pay attention to that type of thinking when we are looking at other researchers and sleuths and investigators and people who are going down the rabbit hole. Are they actually trying to solve the case? Or are they actually trying to bring closure to the situation? Are they actually doing it for the victims and the families? Or did they just develop an infatuation and obsession with their suspect, and they're just trying to see all of the different mental loopholes that they can slip in, all of the different ways that they can connect their particular suspect to the Zodiac Killer mystery with their own creativity, with their own types of mental gymnastics, and it just turns into this giant twisted mental exercise for them. How can they connect person X to the Zodiac Killer case and make it look like, He actually was the one who committed these murders in 1968 and 69, but I see no reason to investigate Eric Musen further as a Zodiac Killer suspect until this person, this individual who brought him forward, can explain how he was in the Bay Area on all of the dates in Zodiac activity. I mean, for the entirety of Zodiac activity, plus 4 years prior, or perhaps even going back to 1964, he's in Massachusetts and Minnesota, respectively. But, this is something that really is quite different. Last week on the channel, I was talking to you guys, though, about the Scorpion ciphers. And the Scorpion ciphers were mailed in 1991, and they were sent to the TV host John Walsh, who hosted the program America's Most Wanted. And I'm going to share some additional information about the Scorpion ciphers right now. And firstly, I would like to do a follow-up to one of the proposed solutions, because one of you guys, Ed Edward Ciphers, in the comments section was saying that, Ned, last week on the channel, you read off a proposed solution to the Scorpion ciphers that was created by Chad Burke. However, you did not say how he did it, or if you did say how he achieved the solution, I missed it. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing Ed Edwards' comment, but I want to be very clear about something. I thought that it was mentioned in the discussion that it was a substitution cipher, that there was, like the way that the Zodiac Killer Z408 was solved, the first cipher that was solved from the Zodiac Killer was actually done relatively quickly. It was done by Don and Betty Hardin, and it's the one that says, I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than hunting wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. And the solution that Chad Burke created for the Scorpion cipher is also a substitution cipher, but I decided to ask Chad Burke for some additional information because with the Zodiac Z408, you guys know the famous story, right? That Don and Betty Hardin thought that the Zodiac Killer seems that he's so full of himself. The first letter is most likely I. The first word in the Zodiac Killer Z408 cipher is most likely I. I like killing people, and that gave them the word like. And because they had the word like, then they had the E, the most common letter in the English language. And actually, there's one step that I missed. First, they had they had the word like, which gave them not only the letter E, but also it allowed them to find the word kill. And I like killing just happened to be the first three words. So it's a little bit of luck, but also some very good intuition on the part of Don and Betty Hardin. And then with the Scorpion cipher solution that was proposed by Chad Burke, it is a substitution cipher, and I did contact him and ask him for some additional details. But ultimately, he said this was something that he found in his notebooks from years ago. It is a substitution cipher, but he doesn't remember the exact point that triggered his desire to search for this. And I'm going to pull up Chad Burke's solution to the Scorpion cipher, which is going to say, this is the Zodiac. I thought a trial determined guilt. Law tell to me a man to have a lawyer, a last meal, and a judge sentences y'all. Vallejo wins. 2 slain but slaves to Zodiac. If he goes, the game is over, but I can't face that. And I also was corrected by Chad when I misread one line where it said EJOS, just as four letters that seemed out of place to me, and he said that word was actually Vallejoans, like referring to the town of Vallejo in California. So I also apologize for that, but yes, this is a substitution cipher in some ways. And I also want to partner this with a discussion that began in the Facebook group, The Zodiac Killer and Me, which is run by Jeff Thornton and Melissa Rose Tappa. And I have to give credit to Melissa for sharing the text of one of the Scorpion cipher letters. And by that I do mean just a letter that accompanied the cipher. There were 5 Scorpion ciphers, but only 2 of them have been made available to the general public. And I'm going to read the text of the letter now that accompanied the Scorpion cipher. And as you'll see very clearly, this is a person who is calling himself Scorpion, as opposed to calling himself the Zodiac. But there is some very similar handwriting on this letter. I am your worst nightmare coming true. My true identity is not known to you yet, and hopefully will not be for a long time. Your show is more exciting, interesting, and factual than any shit-fold movie or series. I have recently moved into New Jersey and begun a new crime spree. I am currently responsible for 23 unsolved crimes ranging from arson to burglary to sabotage homicide and occasionally everything in between. I strongly advise that you keep this letter and start a rather large file since you will be hearing from me again. I have enclosed a rather difficultly encoded message containing information that will prove rather useful to you. This code took a lot of time and effort to develop in hopes that it will defeat the FBI and CIA code breakers. Anything you wish to tell me or ask me can be conveyed to me on your show, Scorpion. And I do want to be clear about one thing. When Chad Burke was sharing his solution to the Scorpion cipher, it begins with, "This is the Zodiac." However, what Chad told me privately was that he does not think that it was the actual Zodiac Killer. He thinks that it was a Zodiac Killer copycat. And when I look at this Scorpion letter, there is something that is extremely Zodiac themed about it. Not only the similar handwriting, some of the language seems like it comes from the Zodiac Killer. Other things seem like they completely do not. If anything, maybe the Scorpion author has a little bit more intelligence. Maybe he's a little bit more articulate. Maybe he's a little bit better at connecting sentences together. But he's also using words like shitfold movie, or terms like a shitfold movie, rather. I mean, if anything, though, that doesn't sound completely like the Zodiac Killer, but at the same time, the Zodiac Killer was very much into movies, especially after 1974, and also talking about, "I am currently responsible for 23 unsolved crimes ranging from arson to burglary to sabotage, homicide, and occasionally everything in between." Well, that's exactly what the Zodiac Killer was talking about after the murder of Paul Stein, when he's saying that he's going to disguise his crimes as routine robberies and accidents and other similar issues. So, for somebody in my position, I'm thinking that this is only halfway in and halfway out. However, this might go without saying, and this might be something that, I don't even know if I need to address, but this person is calling himself Scorpion. And we all know that one of the first movies to create a character based on the Zodiac Killer was the Dirty Harry film that had a serial killer named Scorpio. And when I said the first movie, I don't mean the 1971 Zodiac movie where you actually have somebody playing the Zodiac Killer, but a fictitious persona that uses a loose interpretation of the facts, and they have this character that is loosely based on the Zodiac, and that would be Scorpio from the Dirty Harry film. So if anything, maybe Chad Burke is completely spot on about that. Now, is his cipher solution correct? I don't know. I'm not necessarily convinced at all, especially when we don't know enough about how he solved it. I mean, there are people out there who do propose solutions to ciphers where they are using the substitution method and they find some way to make it work or some way to connect it. I mean, if this were the Zodiac Killer hiding a message, this does sound a little bit like the Zodiac, but I'll read Chad Burke's solution one more time. "This is the Zodiac. I thought that a trial determined guilt. Law tell to me a man to have a lawyer trial and a last meal as a judge sentences y'all. Vallejo wins, 2 slain but slaves to Zodiac. If he goes, the game is over, but I can't face that." That is also a little bit Zodiac and a little bit not Zodiac. However, I think that he's completely on the right pathway when he's saying that the Scorpion cipher was created by a Zodiac Killer copycat. Someone is trying to make themselves look like the Zodiac. Maybe they're even using the Zodiac Killer's persona as the base and formula for their own type of twisted little word game or wordplay. I almost said serial killer word game and wordplay, but I don't know that Scorpion murdered anyone. I don't know that the person who wrote the Scorpion ciphers actually killed anybody. But I would love to know what you think, and you can put your ideas in the comments section down below. Now, a lot of people were wondering why I'm even entertaining the possibility of somebody writing the Scorpion cipher and that person being the Zodiac. Like, why would I think that the Scorpion cipher could be Zodiac related at all? Why do I think that it could be an authentic communication? And in the past, when I first glanced at this, I had all of the usual responses when I'm like, different handwriting, different types of symbols. This is probably just a hoaxer. However, a lot changed when I began looking more closely at the symbols from the Albany letter, because I'm actually going to go over to zodiacciphers.com, which is run by Richard Grinnell, and it's an absolutely excellent website, and he is going to just kind of talk about the Albany letter in his own words. And the symbols on the Albany letter, to get to the heart of the issue, are not quite like the symbols that were used in the previously mentioned 408 cipher, or the 340 cipher, or the Z13 or the Z32, the authenticated Zodiac ciphers. The Albany cipher has sloppier symbols. And there was also even one time when the Zodiac said, "I'm not writing in the same handwriting." When was that? Was that the 1981 Atlanta letter, excuse me. But let's read about the Albany cipher and the Albany letter. On August 1st of 1973, I believe the Zodiac Killer mailed the Albany Times-Union letter and cryptogram, threatening murder toward the Albany Medical Center in New York. This communication, irrespective of who mailed it, was triggered by an article by Kermit Jadiker, that appeared in the New York Daily News on July 2nd of 1973, entitled, "A Code for Murder." The response to the letter was, "You were wrong. I am not dead or in the hospital. I am alive and well, and I'm going to start killing again. Below is the name and location of my next victim, but you had better hurry because I'm going to kill her on August 10th at 5 p.m. when the shift change. Albany is a nice town," and it contained the cipher that most likely says, "Albany Medical Center, this is only the beginning." But the symbols are similar to the Zodiac Killer symbols, and they're also similar to the Scorpion cipher symbols. It just appears that somebody has not gone to the great lengths to turn the ciphers into what Robert Graysmith called works of art. Instead, they are doing this in a rather sloppy and casual way. Now, is this what somebody was trying to do? Are somebody trying to just confuse people once again? Because I just said that's what the Zodiac's all about. That's what the Zodiac is doing. He's trying to do things in a confusing way so people won't be able to understand and predict his movements and abilities. So when you look at something like this that was mailed in the early 1970s and 1973, partnered with statements like in the 1980s about changing his handwriting, to getting to the Scorpion ciphers in 1991 that just have the sloppy and sometimes even more complex symbols than that of the symbols in 1969, it all started to make sense about how those could be authentic communications, where you actually do have one single serial killer who is still writing the letters for years because he enjoys the game of cat and mouse, because he enjoys the teasing. He's already proven that he can commit murders and not get caught, even though he came so close to getting caught that he might not have done it again. And it might have actually been just what Jason W. said in his comment, that he just got really scared after the Stein murder, so he didn't want to continue. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the Scorpion cipher. I'm going with the theory that it was not the Zodiac, it was a Zodiac Killer copycat, but I'm open to the possibility that it was an authentic communication. And if I have to put some type of percentage on this, let's say maybe 60% it was a hoaxer / copycat, 40% it was the Zodiac. So as you see, a very large majority is leaning toward this being a hoaxer. And I've told you on a previous Zodiac Killer news report that there is a new book coming out called 55 Reasons Why John Park Cox Was the Zodiac Killer. John Park Cox is the suspect of Adam Ivester, who runs the channel Real Zodiac Killer Revealed, and I've made a couple announcements about this on the most recent Zodiac Mondays. And today I can tell you that over the weekend I had the opportunity to receive an advanced copy of the free online ebook 55 Reasons Why John Park Cox Was the Zodiac Killer. And Adam has also stated that he is going to be releasing this book for free online once he is ready. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I went into this book with a very low set of expectations, and perhaps I'm going to do a larger presentation on it once he has made it available to the general public. And the reason why I had low expectations was because Adam made over 100 videos on his channel Real Zodiac Killer Revealed, but he only had enough information for one video. And almost every single one of the other 99 videos was just restating something that was in his original platform, restating something that was from his own original set of observations, and just rehashing it, reshaping it in a different context, or bringing up a quotation from an unrelated set of events and saying, oh yeah, this is just like how John Park Cox, his Zodiac Killer Suspect, would have done this and that. And I was not able to even follow those types of presentations. So the reason why I had a low set of expectations for this book, 55 Reasons Why John Park Cox Was the Zodiac Killer, was I was thinking that it's just going to be the same stuff over and over again. And I'm not going to lie to you, there is some of that in there. But the parts of the book where I was pleasantly surprised related to expanding upon some particular discussions about John Park Cox and one of his business associates named Joseph Dudziak. Dudziak is spelled D-U-D-Z-I-A-K. And Joseph Dudziak was actually in his late 50s at the time. I don't think he was the Zodiac Killer. I'm going off of memory, and I want to say that he was 58 years old, and John Park Cox was 50 years old at the time of the Zodiac murders, one of the older Zodiac suspects out there. But what Joseph Dudziak does in the Zodiac Killer mystery is Adam has created this theory that John Park Cox committed the Lake Herman Road murders because he developed this type of fantasy where he thought he was going to lose his private hunting island, which was called Brooks Island, that he actually used to hunt with. His hunting partner was Bing Crosby, because John Park Cox was actually somewhat of a wealthy socialite. And he thought that he was going to lose it in September of 1969, so he developed this type of fantasy about how he was actually going to hunt people for sport, and just like the story The Most Dangerous Game. And that ultimately led to the Lake Herman Road murders. In between the Lake Herman Road murders and the Blue Rock Springs shooting, John Park Cox had a type of falling out with his business partner named Joseph Dudziak. And Joseph Dudziak had the nickname Zodiac. And the reason why I said this stuff is interesting is no matter what, this was not the first thing that Adam learned about John Park Cox. This wasn't like one of his, 1 hour into the Zodiac rabbit hole explorations, and he found that John Park Cox had an associate who went by the nickname Zodiac, spelled Z-O-D-I-A-K. And the Zodiac even used that type of spelling for his own name, particularly at the bottom of the 340 cipher, but you'll see that written on all types of things, Zodiac with a K, and that was Joseph Dudziak's nickname. So he has this falling out with Joseph Dudziak in the spring of 1969, and then Adam's theory is that John Park Cox chose the name Zodiac for the announcement and the debut in the summer of 1969 because it was either framing Joseph Dudziak or making a mockery of him, but I believe the exact phrasing that's used in the book is he thought that he was trying to throw the blame. Well, I shouldn't say the exact phrasing, but that's the idea that's expressed. He's trying to throw the blame onto Joseph Dudziak. And one of you guys in the comment section even responded to me once after I brought up Joseph Dudziak before on the channel, and you said, I mean, the name Joseph Dudziak does fit into the Z13 cipher. Joseph Dudziak has 13 letters, and that is going to lead to 13 symbols, and the Zodiac Killer's 13-character cipher was called the My Name Is cipher. And Adam does provide some additional information and things about the relationship with Joseph Dudziak, as well as with John Park Cox's other business associates. And so those parts of the book, as I said, I was pleasantly surprised, and it was better than I expected. But, once again, I'll keep you posted when this book comes out. Everybody gets their chance to share their ideas. And if somebody has made the effort to present their theory in a book-length version, especially one that's free online, of course I'm going to read it. And, I invite people to read it too and give your honest feedback. If you just don't think that this person was the Zodiac Killer, you can state your reasons why. And I would love to know what you guys think about John Park Cox as a Zodiac Killer suspect. As I said, he was a wealthy socialite, businessman, transportation executive. He ran Par Terminal on the Richmond waterfront, and he apparently had several business associates, and he did not get along well with them. And right now I would like to get to your supporter shoutouts. And you can use several different methods to support this channel. One of them is buymeacoffee.com. Buymeacoffee.com/blackboxned88 allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show, and anybody who makes a donation will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. And our first shout out is going to come to us from Batman66. Batman66, thank you so much for your regular and consistent support. And Batman66 has also helped out with finding a lot of the content for Black Box Online Radio for a lot of the different episodes that we have here on this channel. And there are also episodes that come out every Wednesday about Jack the Ripper and every Friday about DB Cooper. And a big thank you to everyone who listened to the Cooper live stream that I did over the weekend on Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. Everything starts to turn into a blur. I'm pretty sure it was Saturday, actually. But anyway, thank you so much for listening to the Weekend Cooper live stream. And Batman66, thank you so much for your regular and consistent support. And our next one comes to us from River Prawn Pottery. River Prawn Pottery has also become a regular and consistent supporter. And we also have CZ Guy. CZ Guy has joined the ranks of becoming a regular and consistent supporter. And you three guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for Black Box Online Radio. And especially even just tuning in and listening every week and also sharing what you think about the stories and the Zodiac Killer and Zodiac Monday. And I know that CZ Guy has followed a lot of the other content, particularly the shorts here on Black Box Online Radio, and those things are still up and running. And this year I'm going to get back to making YouTube shorts in the near future, and the shorts will be coming out Monday through Friday. They'll be released as reels on Facebook and Instagram, and of course on TikTok. But they're roughly 1-minute episodes talking about anything true crime related, focusing on serial killers a lot, but any subject under the sun or in the darkness is fair game. And our next supporter is Classic Chevy Cat on buymeacoffee.com. And she says, "Let's see if this CC still works. I'm so happy to be back listening to your show, Ned. Listening again to your wonderful show." Thank you so much to Classic Chevy Cat on buymeacoffee.com/blackboxned88. And Classic Chevy Cat has also been a very long time follower of the program. And, I really do appreciate everybody just tuning in weekly, even if you don't listen to Zodiac Monday every single week. I mean, please feel free to visit any of the other content. There are now over 2,000 episodes of Black Box Online Radio, so I'm sure there's going to be something out there that is going to get your attention. And the next one comes to us via the Super Thanks here on YouTube, and it is from Carl Carras, who says, thanks for the last week's Zodiac Killer news report. And Carl Cross has also shared a lot of things about the Long Island serial killer mystery. And I would like to give another shout out to Art Banksy. Art Banksy has been helping find a lot of the images that you're seeing going by on the screen here, and that is very much appreciated. And there is a Black Box Online Radio fan page that is available on the channel, Not Ray Johnson, which you can get on Instagram. And I just want to remind you guys that there is a write-up for the show available on ZodiacKillerCode.com. ZodiacKillerCode.com, and that has the production notes for Zodiac Monday as well. It's the official write-up, and you can visit ZodiacKillerCode.com for a lot of other pieces of information. And the next shout-out that I would actually like to give is to Simon, who sent something in to the Instagram page. And Simon was asking me, what do I think about the possibility of the serial killer Randy Kraft being the Zodiac Killer? And I was like, Randy Kraft, do I know that name? I mean, it sounds familiar, but I don't think I know that name. It turns out it took me a second, but Randy Kraft was the scorecard killer. And once I heard the name the scorecard killer, or I read it online actually, that brought back a lot of things. And I had loosely heard of him in the past. I think I've even mentioned him a little bit on Black Box Online Radio, the scorecard killer, because the Zodiac Killer kept some type of scores and tallies. That's another reason why I did remember the name the scorecard killer. But I've never done a larger segment on Randy Kraft, so I decided to watch the True Crime Central documentary that was available about Randy Kraft, the scorecard killer, and it turns out that he's actually still alive. He's almost the same age as Eric Musen, the honeybee guru, born 1 year after him. Randy Kraft was born in 1945, and let's just get some of the basic pieces of information about him. Randy Kraft is an American serial killer and rapist known as the Scorecard Killer, the Southern California Strangler, and the Freeway Killer, who committed the rape, torture, and murder of 16 young men between 1972 and 1983, the majority of whom were killed in California. Kraft is also believed to have committed the rape and murder of 51 other young boys. He was convicted in May of 1989 and is currently incarcerated. And you will see that even on his Wikipedia it says that the victim range is between 16 and 67. Now, when I'm hearing these things about the Zodiac Killer being a type of homosexual rapist, those things immediately draw some red flags for me in terms of a suspect profile. I talk about this all the time. I'm very hesitant to even entertain the discussions about serial killers who are sexual sadists. And Randy Kraft was indeed a sexual sadist. But let's look at this here. Let's just look at this thing about there's 16 to 67 victims. If I recall from watching the True Crime Central documentary, they stated that his scorecard, like the record that he kept, actually stated 61. So there were two specific serial killer stories that this reminded me of, way more so than the Zodiac Killer. One of them was the serial killer Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer, who kept a bunch of photos of women that have not been identified to this day. It's possible that Rodney Alcala murdered over 100 women, and it's possible that he murdered far less. But there's also the serial killer Alexander Pichushkin, the chessboard killer from Russia, who's also known as the Bitsa Park Maniac. And he was someone who had a chessboard in his home, and he was trying to create this serial killer masterpiece by marking squares on the chessboard, which should have totaled 64. And according to him, he murdered 61 people, but he was only convicted for 47 of the murders. So it turned out that he wanted credit for it. He openly wanted to get credit for the 61 murders. And this serial killer, Randy Kraft, seems somewhat similar to those two serial killers more so than the Zodiac, because here's something that's going on with both Rodney Alcala and Alexander Pichushkin, and you could even say with Randy Kraft. They appear to be sexually motivated sadists. They appear to be sexually motivated serial killers where they want to get some type of sexual gratification from the killing, or at the very least they are predators. They are sexual predators, whereas the Zodiac seems to be a predator in the more distancing type of way, as opposed to someone who is trying to unleash some type of fury because of his urges. The Zodiac is trying to unleash some type of fury because of mental trauma that isn't exactly arousing to him on the surface. But we're going to read a little bit more about Randy Kraft as a serial killer. Randy Kraft was born in Long Beach, California on March 19th of 1945. The Kraft family lived modestly, and Kraft's mother took several different jobs to supplement her husband's assembly line salary. In 1948, the Kraft family moved to Orange County. Already, I have to say that this is, there's some reasonable points here compared to the honeybee guru, who wasn't even in the state of California at the time, to the best of our knowledge. Now, there are some other things, though, that I saw about Randy Kraft, is that, he took an interest in politics at a young age, but he went to Claremont Men's College, and he participated in a rally in 1964 in support of the Vietnam War. You're always going to find these things about people who are against the wars, but Randy Kraft did this in support of the Vietnam War, and, I guess that's something there. But I'm going to share some details with you guys about Randy Kraft that I heard in the True Crime Central documentary. And that one of them is that in 1970 he came out to his family, and his father absolutely did not like the fact that Randy Kraft was gay. Okay, so could there be some type of issue going on with the Zodiac Killer and Randy Kraft about how there is some type of repressed homosexuality that manifested itself into becoming the Zodiac? Then he comes out to his family and he has this terrible experience, so then he goes on to become a sexual sadist. And I have said this before, and perhaps I overdo it. Perhaps I say this too frequently, but Randy Kraft is one of the worst serial killers that I've ever mentioned before on Black Box Online Radio. I mean, not only was he a sexual sadist, he would also cut off the genitals of male victims while they were still alive. And in a very rare instance like this, they talked about this very clearly in the documentary, that he sodomized a man with that man's own genitals. And it was just like, he is doing things that are extremely, extremely graphic and extremely, extremely meant to not only murder the person, but also to humiliate them in a sexual way and also to dominate them in a sexual way. And like, he is castrating the victims, he is cutting off their male parts. So I think that these are some things that definitely show a lot of homosexual animosity. I'm even reminded of the stories of John Wayne Gacy, about how some people think that John Wayne Gacy was a bisexual, right? And the reason why his victims were exclusively male is because he was ashamed of his homosexuality. And with Randy Kraft, I think absolutely all of those things are there. And as I said, he seems similar to a lot of serial killers out there, but just not the Zodiac. I mean, once I'm comparing him to someone like the Honeybee Guru, who seems like the nicest, most respectable guy in the world, who was living in Minnesota at the time doing research about honeybees, compared to some guy who was actually in California and a serial killer. Of course, he's a step up in terms of a suspect profile, and there are a few reasons to consider Randy Kraft, but there are also a lot of reasons to just be like, whoa, these are completely different types of crimes. I don't see anything Zodiac related in the way he's going about things. A way more vicious and confrontational serial killer than that of the Zodiac. But I would love to know what you think. You can weigh in on any of the subjects that have been discussed in this episode. Please give your ideas and feedback in the comments section down below. I would love to know what you think about anything that has been discussed here on Zodiac Monday. What do you think about Arthur Lee Allen as the Zodiac Killer Suspect? What do you think about John Park Cox as the Zodiac Killer Suspect? What do you think about the new profile that was created for Dr. Eric Musen? Do you think that person was trolling, or do you think they just did some very shoddy research? What do you think about Randy Kraft as a Zodiac Killer Suspect? And what do you think about the Scorpion letter? Do you think that that was an authentic Zodiac Killer communication? I would love to read your comments in the section down below. Anybody can write the show at blackboxonlineradio@AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box. And there is always Box Ned 88 over on Instagram. And I will see you over there. Goodbye.